Let's get into some shite. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the Auto-Tune Podcast. I'm Rick. I'm trying to get back into the swing of things. We had a little bit of a break, a little time off. Came back last week rusty. I'm rusty. I not bad, but just trying to get everything back into shape. And I'm feeling really hopeful. I think things are going to be much better in the future. How are you doing? How are you feeling? Have you gotten back into the podcast listening mode yet? Sometimes it takes a little while. You got to catch, but see, the time off gave you a chance to catch up. So I feel like there's no excuse at this point. You should be caught up. You should be refreshed. You should know all of the topics that we've discussed. I'm sitting here today. Well, let me just say, for those of you who might be new to the podcast, hi, how are you? Thanks for hanging out. This is just a way to hang out. This is what we do. Just sit around, hang out, be entertained. You can get in touch with us. You could give us your opinion on things. You can even program the show. Tell me what topics. I would love for you to kind of send me some topics and some things that you would like for me to chat about. We do have a listener line, 678-348-0008. Thanks to Mike for dropping me a line this week. Mr. Poole, I appreciate when you stay in touch. Dave sent me something last week, I think. It's nice having people to kind of listen to the show and send some kind of comments in. It's really kind of cool. So that really helps. And if you want to be on the show, just leave a message. And I'll put your voice on the show. You could give your opinion. And if you're a little shy or you just don't have the time, you're welcome to text that same number I just gave out. And then I'll read your text online or send us an email. Rick@autotune.com is the email. And you can also send us something on Facebook. I'm on Facebook. Tried to start a new Facebook this week. Have you tried to do that? I don't understand how the scammers, spammers, porn bots, I don't know how they start accounts. How do they do it? Because Facebook makes it really difficult if you just want to start a new account, a legitimate new account. So now here's the thing. I've had the Facebook account I have now, I started in 2009. And I started it as a public account because at the time I was doing Life in a Kill podcast, and we had signed with a podcast distribution company, Earth Station One, still around, doing great podcasts. Give them a listen. They got a lot of cool stuff. But we signed with them, and they said, "Do you have a Facebook?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's private. I don't like people coming on and just talking about a bunch of crap." And they said, "Well, it would be cool to get something that's public. Maybe you should start a new account." So I thought about it, and I was like, all right, well, I don't really want to, but I will. So I did. I started a public account so people can kind of join up and chat about the podcast if they wanted to. In the meantime, my other account, which I started in 2011, I got in trouble for doing a joke on there. It was some joke, and in the joke, I said something like, "I would kill that guy," or something like that. I don't remember exactly the words, but it was a joke, obviously. I'm not killing anybody. And Facebook put a strike against my account. And I was like, screw that. What? They're going to tell me I can't joke on Facebook? I don't care if they do own it. So I got really mad, and I just took down my account. I was like, screw it, I'm not going to do it. But I didn't take down my other account. That'll show them, right? So I stayed with my other account for a long, long time, and that account is gradually, it was my public account, not controversial, not opinionated, all of that stuff. And then it's gradually become like my original account, which is more just me kind of spouting off about things. Warning. And so I'm kind of getting into some public stuff, and I just don't want people getting on my account and reading that. Nobody wants to hear. You need to have an alternative where people don't have to listen to that stuff. I know they don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear my opinion on politics or whatever. So I decided to start a new account. And what I did was I thought, well, I'll just go back to, originally, okay, before that, I started the account and I had it up less than 8 hours. And all of a sudden I get a message from Facebook saying, we think you're trying to do something devious. I think that's the word they used. You started this account for devious intents. Wow. And we're not going to let you do it. We blocked it. And if you can say, you can protest that, and then we will review it. And if we still think you've done it, we're going to ban. We're just going to take your account down. You can't get on it. So that happened. And then I filed a protest. They said too bad, and they took it down. So I did some research, and they say you can't have two accounts. Well, I've had two accounts forever. First account 2007, second account 2009. So I've had him for a long time. So I just thought, okay, I'm just gonna sanitize my first account that I haven't used in about 2 years. So I got back on it. I deleted everyone. I started deleting all my posts, which is not easy. They don't make that easy, right? Have you tried to do that? So I had many, many years of posts to delete. That's a little bit less than 20 years. Let's just say 16 years, something like that. Good heavens, that's a lot of post deleting. And then you have to delete your photos separately, all of the likes and all the comments on other people's it's impossible. And they do that on purpose. They don't want you to delete it, so they make it hard. So I started doing it, and I just did a little bit every day, and I just thought I'm going to fix this account up and use it as my public account. Like, just do a little switch around. And I started doing it. It was too hard. It was just too much to delete. And so I started doing some research, and I was like, why can't I start a brand new, fresh account? It doesn't make sense. Well, what I found out is on Facebook, I read it. It said you can only have one account. And I was like, well, I got two, and I've had two for a long time. And plus, if you go to Facebook, it says there's a little button you can push on starting another account. And so I was like, why would they do that? But so you can have multiple profiles, but one account. There's a difference there. That was what I wasn't doing right. Okay? You can have multiple profiles, but only one account. And I got two accounts, and then I tried to start another account. So if I started a profile from my current account, and then no problem. Now I got two. I got two Facebooks now. A public one, and then my personal private one. And public one I'm going to use for business and kind of, I mean, you could get on it if you want. If you could look me up and just, you could hang out with me if you want to do that. Speaking of Facebook, we do have a Facebook group, the Attitude Podcast. We have a kind of a new Facebook group called the Outfluencers. It's kind of like being an influencer, but we're the outfluencers, right? That's how rebellious we are. We're against the grain, people. We're the outfluencers. So anyway, look up the Outfluencers. You can come join us. We can hang out together. Talk about the podcast stuff if you would like to do so. And tell me your nightmare stories about trying to start an account if you want to do that as well. I'm sitting here drinking my coffee. I have fresh hot coffee. Hold on. I was told not to slurp it. I tried not to. So it's pretty good. Now I'm trying to find the perfect coffee formula. Let me tell you my coffee history here. I grew up, my mother wouldn't let us drink coffee when we were kids, obviously, because we were kids. And I don't know, my mother always kind of acted like coffee was like alcohol. You know, it was like an adult drink. You shouldn't be doing it. And my grandmother drank it. Her mother drank it. My other grandmother drank coffee. my cousins or my age drank coffee, but we weren't allowed to drink it. I think I kind of snuck a couple little sips at one point. Didn't particularly care for it. And then I got into college, and then I became a coffee fiend. I got a coffee maker, put it in my room, started making coffee. I was addicted, man. And so I've been a coffee person ever since. Love the coffee. I can drink coffee almost any way. So my preferred way is some sweetener and cream. Both of those. I like my coffee a little bit like a milkshake, kind of backed off of a milkshake a little bit. But I can drink black coffee if I have to. I've done it before. Or I could drink coffee with just sweetener in it, no cream. I could drink it almost any way that you make it. And here's something about me, maybe you should know. I can drink 1 or 2 day old coffee. I don't care. My wife doesn't understand that, but we'll make coffee, and then like the next morning, if there's coffee still left in the coffee pot, I will heat it up and drink it. I don't care. It's fine with maybe a little strong, but it's cool. I will do that, and then that's instead of pouring it out, I just drink it, and then we'll make a new pot. So that's something about me that you might like. If I come over to your house, you could serve me your old coffee. Probably, I'll probably drink it. Coffee does taste better with tobacco, I think. When I was much younger, I would have coffee all the way up until really late at night and smoke cigars. I've never been a cigarette smoker, but I can imagine smoking cigarettes with coffee and cigarettes, like the movie. I think that they go hand in hand. I'm not telling you to do it. Smoking apparently is bad for you, and some people say coffee's bad for you, but they do taste good. And today I was making some, and it actually tastes like tobacco. Sometimes coffee to me tastes a little bit like tobacco. Maybe that's why they go hand in hand. But I don't know. I started thinking about the perfect ratio for coffee. How do you make your coffee? What is your formula for coffee? So my normal way of making my coffee is through a drip brewer, and he was also my favorite baseball player. Drip brewer had a great average. Milwaukee Bucks. Is that, I don't know, is that a baseball team? Anyway, hold on. Get some coffee in my body. I drink drip coffee, so we'll put coffee in the morning. Now, when I first started dating my wife, she wasn't my wife when I first started dating her. And sometimes I would sleep over at her house. Shh, don't tell my mom. And when I get up the next morning, she would make coffee. And it was like 2, maybe 3 times as strong as coffee I was used to. And I don't like it sounds like I do, but I don't really like really, really strong coffee. Now, even though I could drink like the coffee the next morning, I don't like really strong and bitter coffee. I don't have that kind of taste where like even beer, like I don't like IPAs. I don't like really hoppy, strong, bitter beer. And I don't like it with coffee either. I don't like hoppy coffee, but especially like strong, bitter coffee is not my thing. I'm just not into it. But I had to get used to my wife's coffee. I had to pretend like I liked it because I wanted to impress her. I didn't want to go, God, this is awful. This coffee's disgusting. Spit it out everywhere. You don't want to do that when you're trying to impress someone. And especially, she didn't have to make coffee for me the next morning. So I drink, this is delicious. Oh, yeah. Let me have some of it. So now I can criticize her coffee because we've been married almost 10 years. So, but my standards have changed. I'm used to stronger coffee now. I don't know what I drank before. And occasionally I'll make coffee the way I used to make it back when I was a bachelor. And I was like, I don't even know how I drank this. This is like tea. It's barely tea. So I've gotten used to it. like a lot of things in marriage. But now I'm trying to think, what is the perfect formula? So we figured out a formula for our drip coffee maker. We kind of figured out how many scoops of coffee we need to put in, try to make a full pot. If we decide not to make a full pot, how many do we put in for half a pot? Do you have these ratios? You got to know every morning. You got to do it. But I like the French press, and I also like the pour over coffee. It's one of my favorite ways to do it, and I've had to try to find the ratios for both of these. And so I was reading something today, saw something on the internet. Somebody was talking about how to do the perfect formula for French press. And I was reading it, and they were like, it's 1 to 17. And I was like, what does that mean? 1 to 7? I know it's like one scoop. What is it? 1 scoop of coffee to 17 parts water. But what is that? I don't know. I'm not going to measure out. I'm not going to pour 17. What is it equal to? Like tablespoons or whatever. And it just took me forever for somebody to answer. And then someone had said 60 grams of coffee to 1 liter of water. 60 grams to 1 liter. And so I looked it up, and some places said 60 grams was 4 tablespoons. And then other places said 60 grams was 7.5 to 10 tablespoons. That's a lot of freaking coffee. And so I started kind of like doing the math on this. I'm not good at math, but what it came to was like, if I'm doing drip coffee, and I had 12 cups of coffee in there. When using that formula, I would have to put 2 cups of, like 2 full whole cups, 16 ounces of coffee in there. That's a lot of coffee. That's I can't afford that. It's insane. So something's wrong. I don't know. Somebody's got their ratios wrong. And so all day today, I've been playing around with formulas to try to come up with something. So here's what I did. I did a French press just now, and I did a little different from how I normally do. So I measured out 8 tablespoons of coffee to the 1 liter. I have a 1 liter French press, 8 tablespoons. And what I did was I put the water in a pot, and I put the coffee in that, and I boiled the water first. Then I poured it into the French press, and then I did the French press and all of that. So I got a nice, the coffee got really good and done first. I think it's pretty good. It's a lot more coffee than I normally do, I think. But it's pretty good. But I don't know. I feel like now I'm going to be spending a lot more money on coffee. Pour over coffee, I usually just do 1 cup. I think I'd come up to 3 tablespoons per cup on the pour over. I believe it works pretty good that way. I'm going to play with that maybe tomorrow. I'll play with that ratio a little bit, see if I can come up with a better one. Even though I did the 8 tablespoons per a liter, it's slightly weak. It is on the weak side, so maybe I should have done more. I don't know. I still got to do the formula. All right. What's happening this week? It's back to school. Anybody going to school? I don't have school listeners, do I? That's way too young. If you're in school, you shouldn't be listening to this podcast, not because it's adult, but because it's boring. You should strive for much better podcasts if you're a young person. All of us older people, we can settle in to these really crappy podcasts like this, but you young people shouldn't. You should aspire to greatness. I don't know, what is a good podcast for you? Just go look for something. Get away from this one, please. But it is all the kids going back to school this week. And it's too hot. Did you go back to school? I feel like I went back to school in September. August just seems so early to go back to school. We were on vacation when I was kids in August. I couldn't stand to sit in a hot classroom. We went around the 1st, like right after Memorial Day, or Labor Day is what it was. Right after Labor Day, we went to school, I believe. And I don't know, kids going back early this year. But they're there. They're there. There's something about going back to school. It gets in your DNA. It gets in your blood. It's like every year, even if I haven't been to school in forever, but I still get these little feelings of back to school, the weather, how it feels. Remember what were your rituals like? What did you do? Did your parents take you out and buy you new clothes? Remember that when you had to get a new wardrobe? Few new shirts. You always wore the first day. Felt really cool with your shirt. And then the second day, you're back to what you wore last year. But the first day, you're really dressed up, And then you wear that same outfit when you get to school portraits because you got to have your new shirt on for the school portraits. But finding out who's in your class was always kind of good. Just, I don't know, getting back into the swing of things. There's a little bit of a different smell to first day of school. Everything kind of smelled a little new. At the same time, a little stinky. But yeah, I remember that. Kind of fun. High school was really cool seeing all your friends, you're back, hadn't seen them all summer. But there is something about that sort of gets into your DNA and you never forget it. And then when when fall starts creeping up, just seeing the mist on the window reminds me of when I was a kid, and next thing I know, I'm up trying to catch the school bus and they're calling the cops trying to get me off the school ground. I can't help it. It's just something. It's just like it's a call. It's a call that's deep down inside of me, like pinto beans. It's a political year, as you know, and this time I try not to talk about politics on this show. I feel like that we need a little break from politics. You're going to get that all day long, everywhere you turn. TV, social media. You don't need it on the podcast, do you? Right? No one wants to hear it. It's just like we need a little break. But I have to admit, when a lot of stuff is going on, it's kind of ridiculous not to address it. And so I do want to kind of at least call attention to a few things. So here's the thing. What I'm discovering a lot of stuff about politics, and I'm not choosing a side here. If you know anything about me, if you've listened to the podcast, you've been on my Facebook, you know where I stand. You know who I'm voting for, right? I make it pretty well known, I think. But here's what I've discovered about. I don't think people care as much about politics as they do about political power. And so what I see a lot is I feel like that people, I'm trying to think of a good example here, because the way I was telling someone about this the other day, and it was just like, the best example is like when the Washington Redskins football team a few years ago was just people just unloaded on it, and they protested and they boycotted and to try to get the team to change their name from the Redskins to something else. And the Redskins people were like, no, we're not going to do it. We're not changing the name. But it just became like a out of control political power thing. And I'm not saying whether they should or shouldn't have done it. Okay, I will say, because the Redskins, that was my football team. Redskins were my football team. But I was also very much for them changing the name. I thought it was a racist name. Maybe at one time in the world it wasn't. It could have been based more on honoring a certain group of people, but it was more difficult. So if you have like the Kansas City Chiefs, the Chiefs kind of make reference to royalty in a way, the Native American royalty. The Chiefs, they're kind of like playing up to the brave warriors, maybe. The same with the Atlanta Braves, right? Redskins is like, you wouldn't, if you had like the yellow skins or the black skins or the white skins, it was just hard to excuse that term nowadays, I feel like. So I was totally fine with them changing. I always thought that they should have. But I feel like a lot of the people who were protesting and boycotting, they didn't care, really. It was more of a way to see how powerful they were politically. And none of those, I feel like almost none of those people now are working for Native American issues. Do you hear about them, like, protesting other Native American things? Do they get involved in Native American causes? Are they really trying to represent Native American causes in government? Are they protesting, laws that are unfair to Native American culture, locations, history, people? No, you don't hear about it. It's like they just cared about a football team. And I don't think they even cared about a football team. I think they wanted to see how powerful they were politically, how loud their voice could get, and if they could make people change something. And as soon as they did, they're like, okay, cool, let's go on to something else. And I think that happens now in a lot of things with politics. I think there are a lot of issues that people don't care about now. If there's like a war, if there's some kind of an action, I'm not going to even pick anything out because it could be anything. But I think a lot of times the issue might not be that important to anybody, but it becomes an important issue to people who need their position and their power to be put forth. And they need to kind of let people know how strong they are, how powerful they are. And I feel like a lot of politics nowadays is in that. It's just, how loud can my voice be? How powerful can I'm concerned about that. I'm concerned that it's not about issues anymore. It's about groups. It's about people and their voice. So we don't hear a lot about issues. There's something else that gripes me. I'm going to come off sounding like just an angry, gripey old man with this. I apologize. Because I get it. I understand. So we got new personalities in this race. So we all know it. Well, it was going to be Trump, Biden. Everybody was prepared for that. And then there was a big switcheroony, right? And then, so when Trump named his running mate, J.D. Vance, who came in, and immediately I started noticing, and this is fine. This is not a comment on this, but I just started noticing this thing on the internet where people just start trying to characterize JD, making the jokes and all this stuff. That's just part of politics, so it's fine. But it's like everybody was like, JD Vance is the kind of person who would blah, 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 blah. And then they come up with some kind of really, it's really made to kind of make him seem like a nerd or a person out of touch or whatever. Okay, it's just a political thing. I get it. But that went on for a long time. And then Harris names her running mate, and from Minnesota, Governor Walz from Minnesota. And now I'm seeing the same thing, but it's with him. And of course, I see it a lot from the progressive side, and I'm sure it happens from the other side as well, the conservative side. But it's like, well, let's make Walz seem like this cool dad, And so all of these things are like, this is, Walz would do this. He's sort of this folksy dad, so he would make this joke or he would do this thing. And then they try to contrast him with Vance, who's out of touch, and Walz is the cool dad. And I'm kind of tired of that. It kind of gets on my nerves. Okay, I know I just sound like I'm gonna get off my lawn, but let me tell you why. It's not really that. It's not an age thing, but here's what I feel like is happening. I feel like politics has become like pro wrestling, right? And we've all kind of seen this happen. You got to have these characters in pro wrestling, and it's happened in politics too. And so Trump is just like the baddie. He's like he's become this huge, larger than life personality. And one group of people see him as the evil, bad villain. The other people see him as the savior of the universe. I guess it just depends on which side you like. I think Trump likes to promote himself as kind of like the guy that's just going to rip a hole in the wall and make change and do things his way. And, and whether he does or not, I think if you look at, okay, he made an impact over the 4 years he was president, but he didn't bring doomsday to the world like a lot of people thought he was going to. But the characterization of him, and I'm not saying he wouldn't if he was in there again, I don't know. I'm just saying the cartoon of Trump is, when we're talking about pro wrestling, he's this character. And so it just feel like in this society, we're all trying to outline these characters in the war. So Walz is now this character of the dad, the kind dad, the Mike Brady, like in Brady Bunch. He's just your folksy little dad that'll take you to Cracker Barrel and buy you a breakfast and have a little chat with, And Vance is like this scatterbrained kind of dunce who's out of touch. He's trying to be folksy, but he's not really folksy. And then Harris is, so we start outlining this again. So what I'm seeing is all of this stuff about describing who Tim Walz is from like that character standpoint. And no one ever talks about issues. No one talks about what needs to get done, who's going to do what. It's just, let's make these clever, funny characterizations so that we have our D&D characters to play this little game that we're playing. And that's what irritates me about it. Not that it's happening. I appreciate humor. I appreciate all of that stuff. Okay, Saturday Night Live, that's what they're for. Parody, satire, do that. But can we talk about some issues? Let's talk about what each person believes. Let's talk about what's going to happen when people get, I don't care that somebody's a folksy dad. I really don't. It's nice to know we have a folksy dad there. But let's concentrate on some issues. That's all I'm going to say about it, because I really feel like I'm starting to sound like an old man. Speaking of old man, one more thing. I saw a documentary about the TV show MASH. I think it comes on, it's on Netflix. If you saw MASH, now MASH, okay, that's how old I am. When I was in college, MASH was like huge, big, and it went off the air when I was in college. So I would say high school and college, MASH was a constant presence on television. And the group of people that I hung out with in college, all of the theater majors and theater people, we'd get together and watch MASH once a week on the TV, the regular channel TV. We didn't have the cable. The regular channel MASH would come on. That was sort of our little show that we watched, and I really liked it, but I kind of lost touch with it. As much as I enjoyed it then, I don't really pay a whole lot of attention to it now when it comes on. But I saw this documentary and I was doing some work and I thought, well, I'm going to put this on and just kind of leave it in the background. And so I did, and it turns out to be interesting. And so I started, the first thing that catches my attention is how, even today, how well written that show is. The jokes are not, sometimes humor goes out of style. The jokes are still funny. The issues are still important today. The characters are still interesting. They did a really good job with that show. If you are a fan of MASH, this is a documentary, like I said, on Netflix. I think I saw it on Tubi, but I think it's the same one. Give it a look. There's some interviews with cast of MASH, and they're old. So am I. We're all older. Alan Alda's in his 80s. But it's interesting. They look back and they kind of give their opinion and they talk about it. It's worth it. If you're a MASH fan, it's worth giving it a view. And maybe if you're not, you'll become a fan. It's not, I kind of thought it was going to be a little benign. I thought I was going to put it on and not pay attention to it. And it was better than I thought. So I'm giving you a recommendation. The documentary, MASH, can't remember the name, but it's on Netflix. Look it up. Watch it. that's all I got for you today, people. Just some, I don't know. I'm just kind of getting back on track, spouting things off a little bit. What do you think of the show? Are you going to stick with it? It's going to get better. It really is. I'm burning up right now. I'm upstairs in my little studio, and I think I got the air turned off up here. I'm dying. But I'm going to get back into the swing of it. I got some things, let's just say next week. Next week's going to be good. It's going to be awesome. No, I just like, I'm kicking the rust off, getting back into it, and I think we're going to have a good time. Last week, I pushed the wrong button. Did you know that? I pushed the wrong button. This week, I push the right button. See, it doesn't take me that long to learn things. Like a week, and I got it all figured out. I'll see you next week.